Hey guys, Super Insane 18 here, and this video is probably going to be really bad quality. If you can't notice by my background, I am not at home. I'm actually on vacation out of town for a family event, so Konami picked the absolute worst time to drop this ban list, but originally I wasn't going to make a video, but after thinking about it and looking at it, I decided that it's a little bit too big of a list to not make a video. So I've got the list pulled up on my phone, and we're just going to go over it a little bit. It's not a live reaction. I've already seen it. Again, like I said, I'm on vacation. I couldn't really avoid it. I didn't have the time to make a video as a live reaction. So instead of a live reaction, we're just going to go ahead and talk about my thoughts on it and where I think the meta is going to go. So I'll see. I'm doing this on a really crappy laptop, so I don't even know what I'll be able to edit. I'll see what I can put on the screen. Maybe I'll be able to have it in some capacity. But first off, for actually being banned, we have Cyberstein. I think that that's relatively self-explanatory. Being able to cheat out specifically Naturia Exterio in multiple decks is not really fair, so I'm not really upset about that hit. Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow, it is very interesting to see them ban such an integral part of the Super Heavy strategy so like early into the deck's lifespan. We just got Cyberstorm access, what, like 3-4 weeks ago? So having literally less than a month to play this deck at full power, a little bit strange. And I've seen some people saying, oh, the deck is dead, they lost Scarecrow, blah, blah, blah. But like, when you think about it, all they really lost was a monster reborn. So I don't think that that is going to outright kill the deck. I don't have the time to personally lab it or do some testing myself right now, again, out of town, but I'm sure there are going to be tons of videos out by the end of the weekend showing you lines that do not use Scarecrow. So, of course, once those are readily available, I'm going to be making a combo video for you guys as well. So Super Heavy, probably still one of the top contenders. The only hit that I think is the actual like correct and impactful hit is next, which is going to be the number 89 Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. This card just had to go. Honestly, this card was the most and probably only degenerate part of Kashtira, because it enabled so many different kinds of like FTKs, quote, quote. Obviously, there was the 5 zone lock that really amounted to a 9 zone lock because you're just going to lock 4 more zones on your opponent's turn. It also let you do the banish 18 cards off the top of your opponent's deck combo, which you're banishing half of somebody's deck. They're probably going to be missing out on the pieces they need. So that was definitely a very warranted hit. A lot of people wanted that to go. I predicted it to go. So yeah, definitely glad that's gone. A Pointer of the Red Lotus, this is probably just collateral of Thrust existing. A lot of people have been using it in the side deck now because you're able to Thrust, and on turn 1, there really aren't great options to set off Thrust. Because you have to remember, Thrust can only add a card if your opponent controls a monster. So if you get hand trapped on turn 1, going for the Appointer of the Red Lotus to rip another card out of their hand is very detrimental. So again, it makes sense, but I don't think it's all that impactful. And then the last card being banned is Branded Expulsion. This was on my prediction list, and it makes sense from a Konami standpoint. They just printed Sanctifier. They want to sell out the Sanctifier. But personally, I would have much rather seen the 4 or 5 cards that Expulsion enables to get hit. That's the Gimmick Puppet, Raw, Ito, Jaugen, all of those cards that just don't let your opponent play the game. I think it's much better to ban those cards than Expulsion, but here we are. That's going to be it for the banned. Onto the limited, we have Blaster, Dragon Ruler, Infernos. They just announced a ton of fire support, so that was, again, on my prediction list. It's not really going to do much. Mathmech Circular, this one's interesting. I didn't really think that Mathmech was doing well enough to warrant being hit, but clearly Konami has different opinions. I mean, the deck is still really good, and if there was a card to hit, it's definitely Circular. But yeah, I still think that Mathmech is still very, 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 very strong. Because they just got all of the new Firewall cards as well. So where you went from, what was it? It was 12 copies of Circular between Defensor, Small World, Signet Mining, all of that. Now you've got 10 copies of Circular, so oh no consistency. Like it's still going to be a really, really strong force to be reckoned with. Limited again, we have Psy-Framegear Gamma. This is funny. I think that this ultimately kills Gamma as a hand trap because there's no way you're going to be playing one Gamma and one Driver. That just sounds like you're playing 2 completely dead cards. So I think that putting Gamma to 1 ultimately is the same as banning it. It's not going to see any play anymore, unless you're playing pure Psy-Frame, in which case have at it. Then coming back to 1, we have Denglong, first of the Yangzing. Now this is interesting. I see both sides of the fence on this one. Some people saying that it's way too broken to come back. Some people saying that the horror stories no longer exist and that it's perfectly fine at 1. I personally think that there are going to be quite a few FTKs with Denglong, so only time will have to tell. A Rise Heart to 1, Kashtira Rise Heart. That's an interesting hit. I feel like the card that was more worthy of getting limited is the Shangri-Era. If we're going based on the extra deck monsters, I think that probably Fenrir is the most warranted of the main deck monsters. But when it comes to extra deck monsters, I feel like Shangri-Era was probably the better limit, but we have a Rise Heart at 1 now. That's going to do some really interesting stuff. I think that now Preparations has to be played just as a way of reborning your Arise Heart. And in specific matchups, like especially the mirror match, if Fenrir manages to banish an Arise Heart face down, or going turn 2 if your opponent is able to rip it out with a Unicorn, then you really don't have ways to recur it. So that could be a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so that's going to be for Kashtira. Now, the most hilarious part, and I might do a winners and losers style video for this as well, but we have Pearly Delicious Memory going to 1. And I think that that's just hilarious because Pearly hasn't done anything here in the TCG. And the reason for that is because we were waiting on a ban list to hit the current format, because that's what happened in the OCG, right? We had Kashtira doing really well, we had Tearlaments doing really well, and then OCG got their ban list, and that skyrocketed Pearly up to a top tier contender. But now with Delicious Memory at 1, it's going to be much, much harder to get into your Plump, and Plump is the heart and soul of the deck. So I don't know if Pearly will ever really be a meta contender here in the TCG. Again, time is going to have to tell, but it's a very unfortunate hit for them, and I think that they might actually just be the biggest loser of the ban list. And then the final card being limited to 1 is Naturia Sacred Tree. This is also something that I feel is pretty warranted. It's not a once per turn search, meaning that you can just do it multiple times. And it's very searchable and very easy to dump. So having it at 1 is enough of a consistency hit to make it matter, but not enough to flat out kill it. So I think that's very warranted. But let's go ahead and move on to the semi-limits because there are quite a few. Semi-limited, we have Herald of Orange Light coming back to 2. This, I think, is kind of irrelevant as well. I wasn't really sure why it went to 1. I mean, I know why it went to 1. It was being very, very abused with the Ishizu strategy. So yeah, with the Shizus at 1 and being pretty much out of the meta, I think that this can come back. I don't think that this is going to make any waves. We have Kashtira Unicorn going to 2, which I think is absolutely laughable. I ran the numbers through a probability calculator, and you had 13 ways into your unicorn, and now you have 11 ways into your unicorn. So it goes from like an 87% chance to an 81% chance of getting into your unicorn. I think that that's just laughable. I'm pretty sure Kashtira is just still going to be the best deck after this list. But again, time will have to tell when I have more time and I'm not trying to rush out a video in preparation of going to my family event tonight. I'll definitely bring you guys some better content. Then we have Lightning Storm at 2. I really don't know this one. This is kind of out of left field. Lightning Storm hasn't really been in the meta all that much. People are kind of on the fence with it. Like half the people play it, half the people don't. I don't really see why this would have gone to 2. I think it's perfectly fine at 3. Next at 2, we have Runic Fountain. That is also a very laughable hit, in my opinion. It's very similar to when they put Hulk to 1. People were only playing 1 Hulk anyway, so putting it to 1 was almost like not hitting it, and it feels like the same with Fountain. Most people are only playing 2 Fountain because you essentially play 18 copies of E-Telly that can search it, so I don't really know why putting that to 2 matters. I personally think it should have flat out gotten banned, or at the very bare minimum to 1. So this is just another laughable hit on the list. Then we have Sky Striker Engage coming back to 2. This is something that a lot of people are going to be happy about. A lot of people are going to hate. I'm personally on the hate side. I don't really like Sky Striker personally. It's just not a deck that meshes well with me. And I'm not happy about seeing the possible resurgence of it because all of the fanboys are going to come back and play it at 2 now. But yeah, it's a card. And then the last card, semi-limited, is going to be Sprite Starter. This just makes no sense. I predicted that Starter would go to 1. It's the only card in the Sprite archetype that really warrants being hit. Putting it at 2, I guess, slows it down, but like we weren't seeing Sprite as a favorable strategy this format anyway. A lot of people have been moving on to the other decks. So I'm not quite sure why they even hit it at all. Again, I think 1 would have been the better hit if they were going to hit it. Being at 2, I don't see it really changing the format at all. And then if we go to the Unlimits, again, quite a bit, but there's not really much to say about them. We have Black Wing, Steam the Cloak. Without Hulk, this really isn't a threatening card anymore. Gen X Ally Birdman, I feel like that's the same concept, but like Birdman has been on 1 for years, even before Hulk was a thing. So I think this is just one of those cards they forgot about until now, so they're going to go ahead and bring it back. Samsara Lotus, I think this was hit because of an FTK. I'm not 100% sure. I don't even know what this card does off the top of my head, so we'll see what happens with that. We have Spiral Quick Fix back to 3. This is really cool because I personally love Spiral, but without Master Plan, I still think that the deck isn't going to really be able to function because you have no easy way to get into your plays. Spiral Master Plan was the heart and soul of the deck, so without that, I don't think Quick Fix is going to make any waves. We have Lyrilusk Recital Starling. Again, this was on my prediction list. It went to 1, didn't do anything, went to 2, didn't do anything, went to 3. Here we are now. We have Draco Face Off. Again, this is one of those cards that I feel like they forgot about for a while. Finally back at 3, so we're going to see if that makes any waves. I don't really think it will. And then the final card is going to be the Sky Striker Mecha Modules multi-roll. Again, not happy to see the resurgence of Sky Striker, but that is just my personal opinion. I'm sure a lot of you guys like the deck. But yeah, that is going to be the ban list and just some of my very early thoughts. When I'm not pressed for time, I'm going to bring you guys a more in-depth video. And of course, we're going to have combo tutorials and deck profiles and a ton of content because after a ban list, there's always just so much to be done. Figure Monday, we're probably going to have a couple of uploads just because there's a lot on my mind and a lot to do. And I'm just going to be stewing over this all weekend, even though I'm going to be at a family event. So there you guys have it. That is going to be my early reaction for the ban list. I'm sorry that it couldn't be live. I'm sorry that it's not as well produced of a ban list video as I normally do, but you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.